All right, we are live. Thanks for joining. Good to see everybody here. Let's see, Brian. Nice to see you in the chat. All right, so a couple of quick announcements, really quick, at the front of this, just related to the video I posted Monday on the Dream X40 Ultra, which is still the vacuum I'm, currently using. Disclosure, it was a sponsored video, but I'm very impressed with the vacuum. And if you go over to my website, you will see there's the giveaway, which you can still enter for the next little while here, is to get an X40 Ultra. So you can go check it out, submit your name and email address if you live in the continental United States, and then you can have a chance to win a new, not the one I did use in the video or have in my home, but a completely new, unopened Dream X40 Ultra and tri-cut brush that they gave to me as part of this whole sponsorship. So pretty exciting opportunity there, as well as if you're interested in getting one of these vacuums, there's a discount code in the description of my video, which you can use to get even more off of any existing discount for that vacuum. And obviously I'll be covering Black Friday more on the channel and other places coming up, but I do want to also point out as well, a little bit less related to smart home tech. We've been talking in the past how I've been I'm getting ready to go to CES again, thanks to your support, and cover that live in person. And I noticed that a lot of the hotels in Vegas, and I imagine there's a lot of other hotels across the board, depending on wherever you want to travel, that have sales or lower rates right now. And CES is obviously traditionally a very expensive time for hotels in Las Vegas, but I was noticing I got a nice discount, not a earth-shattering amount, but it was like a nice little discount compared to the amount that I had previously booked my hotel for. So if you are booking travel anytime in the future, go check, see if you can book it for cheaper right now, because you might be able to, just with various Cyber Month deals going on right now. So heads up there. And we have it was a busy week on the channel already. 2 videos out. There's the Dream video, as well as then the Aqara leak sensor. That was exciting. Maybe some questions coming along with that. Sam sent a friend of the channel, sent a kind message in through the question submission option, which you can always submit questions ahead of time for this on my website if you go to the live page. And that's also where, just a reminder, you can get the calendar for the live stream. And I need to go ahead and delete. We will not be having a live stream next week on Thanksgiving evening. You might not live in the US and not celebrate Thanksgiving, but a lot of us who live in the US do. I'm overexposed right now. Hold on. There we go. That should be a little better with the video. But yes, so next week we won't have a live stream, but then we'll resume back on the 5th of December. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one from the calendar for next week. All right. So, but yes, thank you, Sam, for the kind words. And I actually just picked up another one of Sam's buttons, the RA smart buttons, with my own money. And not initiated by Sam at all. Just I am shuffling around some buttons, and I don't have a button currently for like the going away automation. I had to move that. So I want to have like a button near the entrance to our garage, and you can just press it and start a bunch of going away, leaving the home automations. So, like security system, other stuff, lights off. So that could be something too, a fun weekend project for you if you want to set up a button like that. I'm going to go ahead and say hi to some of you guys in the chat. Yes. Yeah, Saul, we've started to get winter here in Illinois. It was our first kind of snow of the season today. Not a big bad storm or anything, but just definitely some snow. So yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the warm weather. Not in Illinois. Brian, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Good to see you here. Buddy, hello from Texas. Also, probably not snowing there. Hey, Melody, thanks for joining. Oh, I don't know, Sam. I don't know if I can answer your question on air. We'll just leave it at that. But yes, I'm sorry you can't sleep. Um, good question, Brian. I am media. So forget the requirements. It's actually not all that high if you've been doing YouTube for any amount of time, or a lot of other sort of publishing content online. But the bar is not that high to become media. So it's not like a huge achievement, but you can register as media for CES. And then that means you get access not only to the main show, which starts on Tuesday, but there's also a CES Unveiled event on Sunday night. And that's usually where you get kind of like go around to little booths to see all the different things. And that's usually where the news breaks, and you'll see like um, some of the news shows there for like traditional news shows will record little segments that'll then play on the Monday morning news of like at CES this year, blah, blah, blah is being introduced. And that's Sunday night. And then Monday night, there's usually this sort of another sort of similar event called PepCom, and that's also happening. So then you and then Monday during the day is a lot of the big keynotes. Like this year, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA is speaking, and there's a handful of other big executives who speak at big keynote speeches, and then like usually some cars and other stuff. I don't always in the smart home space pay super close attention to Monday's stuff, but then and I would love to see Jensen Huang's speak, but I don't know if I want to stand in like hours and hours of lines to get into that. We'll see. I don't know how bad it will be to get in and see him speak. But definitely, if you're not familiar, Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, kind of one of the bigger people in the tech industry these days, and historically speaking. But then, and then Tuesday starts the traditional show for, I think it's even just for media at that point. I can't remember when it opens to the public, but then it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is like the traditional CES show floor across like multiple convention centers in Vegas. And it's quite the scale of a thing. I mean, it takes up like all the Las Vegas Convention Center, all the Venetian Convention Center, and I'm sure there are other places too that I haven't been to. There's all kinds of different parallel events. There's also, along with PepCom, which is another parallel event, there's Showstoppers, and there's a bunch of other conferences. So yeah, it's definitely, Vegas gets pretty full that week, but it's fun to be a part of it. I mean, I'm not really too much someone who would like going to Vegas in general, but like CES is an exciting reason to go to Vegas, and then have now seen Vegas and been there, and been there, done that. So yes, you got snow this morning too, Brian. That makes sense. Pretty much the same latitude. Yeah, photo stuff. It turned to rain. Lovely. Yeah, I loved speaking. This is going to be like Brian's also a photographer, and this is going to kind of be like a photo video nerd joke. But I loved how Peter McKinnon, who's a big YouTuber in the photography space, in one of his recent videos, he was like out he lives outside Toronto, I think. And he was like out, or this was in Ontario. He lives in Toronto, but this was like in Ontario. He went to Ontario and like just outside in the wilderness, and was commenting that it's like C-Log 3, basically meaning it's like you're looking outside at log footage, like not graded color. Everything you look outside in the winter like this, it's just gray, flat, boring colors. Hard to make good looking video from outside in a place like this right now. But thankfully, a lot of my stuff with smart home is inside, so that should be good. Let's see. Troy, New York got rain, another gray, probably might snow tomorrow. Okay. Yes. Hello, Miguel. Oh, yes, good. I'm glad you got that. Have you heard about the Starling Home Hub? Basically, any Google Assistant device can be added. Um, I have not heard about the news with the Starling Home Hub. I mean, I'm a fan of the Starling Home Hub itself, but I think it's a great device, especially if you're really into Apple Home and Google Home. It can be a nice bridge between the two and much easier to use than some of the other sort of do-it-yourself hubs like a Home Bridge or even a Hoobs. It's way more targeted towards Google. Let's see what's on their blog. I don't see any news from them. I didn't catch anything earlier. Um, Pretty sure Grand Rapids had the grayest month in the country last year in January. That would that would make sense. Um, so one other thing though, I wanted to um mention and see if you guys are interested. I'd love to hear in the chat. Let me pull this up. So Flic is I think I had it in my yes, I had it in my hold on, I need to find this link. But Flic, the button company, they unveiled a new scripting language for their hubs, and this allows then you can script a bunch of matter-based automations with their hubs, and it's a kind of a big new thing. Yeah, here's Jennifer Patterson tweeted a quick quip about it on The Verge. There's a handful of other coverage. Their PR folks reached out to me. But Flic's Hub is now a scriptable Matter controller. You can program custom commands for Matter devices, including Flic's buttons and twist controllers. And the Matter support is a Flic script, which is a JavaScript-based API. And it'll, of course, so then you can like send commands to any Matter device from Flic. So sometimes if you've done any kind of software development or things like that, you might feel like you're limited a little bit by what's possible with like, let's say like a shortcut style automation, right? Like big blocks and stuff. And you could write something way faster with code. And so this is one of, I mean, there's a handful of other options to write code to run your smart home too, but this seems interesting because it then opens up the possibility inside the Flic Hub. But I'm just like, I'm curious because traditionally I haven't really liked wanting to make my automations all this complicated, running JavaScript and then having to go into like debug why something went wrong. Because of course, when you can add the complexity, then you can, it also increases your chances of writing bugs. So I haven't played with this at all yet. It just was announced. I mean, I found out about it basically as soon as it announced or right around then. Yeah, it's like, I would love to hear from you guys as smart home enthusiasts watching the stream. If you could let me know in the chat, with 10 being super excited, jumping up and down, really over the moon for this, and 1 being I could care less. How interested are you in something like Flic adding JavaScript control to their hub? Because it hasn't really been like a huge news story, and like I'm interested in it. I think it's a cool idea for Flic to try, and it could really take hold, but I don't know if I'm gonna like jump in and like play with it a bunch. But I just don't know, like, is anybody out there here in the chat? Like, you don't even have to give a 1 through 10 rating in the chat, but just like, I'd love to hear from you in the chat if you're watching live, or add a comment below the video if you're watching after the fact. Are you excited about this new feature from Flic, or is it, kind of no big deal? Okay, so Brian, yeah, Starling works with any Google Home product. Yeah, I have had a very busy past couple days at work, so I have my queue of read later articles and RSS unread items is very high right now. So I have not kept up with the news as much as I usually do. Um, this is interesting. Yeah, I'm just doing some Googling. I don't see anything about this, but maybe we can talk about it more another time. Let's see. All right. A 9. Okay, Brian's pretty interested. 6 for, or the another Brian in the chat. We have two Brians here. So 9 and 6. Yeah, so we have Garrett's another developer or using code at your job, just like myself as well. So Mac system administration and Unix system, that's cool. Yeah, there's I'm sure you're well versed in all the different shell commands, and I find that super handy. And that's another thing too. I was about to say that I find it super handy when I need to do various shell commands. I'll forget all the details of like, oh, I'm working with a directory here, so I need to like add the parameter for something with directories, whether it's recursive or some other thing. And like I'll always forget the nuances of that like syntax when I'm writing a script from scratch for something for work, usually like some kind of DevOps automation thing. And I've found AI to be super useful for that kind of thing where you're trying to code something and you forget the details. And so now the Flic hub is a little bit of a niche use case, but I almost wonder there too if something like a Flic, a smart home programming language could be made more accessible by tying into AI to generate the different phases of the code. Because then you could just tell the AI, I wanted to do this, and then it could write the code for you. And you could still see the raw code and work with that if you wanted to. But then like because you there could be autocomplete, right, for certain things depending on how you have it set up, maybe in your text editor or something like VS Code or something. Given this is JavaScript, I don't know. Maybe Flic has some kind of IDE for it, but it's or plugins to make an IDE work with their JavaScript frameworks. But I I don't know. Like, I think having AI there could really make some smart home scripting way more accessible than it currently is because AI can't necessarily, like right now, create a shortcut for you using the Shortcuts app on iOS or macOS. Because, I mean, it could theoretically, I guess, because it's XML behind the scenes, but it's like, and I know some people have tried to reverse engineer some of that, but generally speaking, it's not pure text. And that's the advantage of code, is that an LLM can generate that pure text. And it's not always perfect, but it's definitely a leap ahead of where you would be without it. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see, given the fact that this language is coming out at the same time as Matter is becoming more of a thing. And this is a Matter controller. And there's a potential there that could work with AI. I'm somewhat interested there, but I need to dig in more to this to see. So let's see. There's stuff in the chat. Okay, some more 6s. So moderately interested in thanks, Buddy and Chris, in doing Flic. Brian's a dev. Yeah, we got a lot of technical folks here on the chat this evening. It's always fun to see. Yeah. Okay. So ChatGPT. Yeah, that would make sense because Home Assistant is used so much more broadly. I'm sure ChatGPT, like LLMs have way more material to pull from for something like that. Just like, I use it a lot for Swift because I'm mostly in Xcode writing Swift for Apple's platforms during the day. So yes. Let's see. We also had, let me look. I had on my list here some other stuff I wanted to mention today. But I'm forgetting what it is. Really riveting here, slow moving stuff. So Amazon had their new Echo Show. They did like a 21-inch display, and I thought that was very interesting, like idea to have. It's what's a smart TV versus what's a smart display, right? It's really blurring the lines here. I'm going to pull up a picture of this so you guys can see. And then that gets into like, well, will Apple ever make a smart TV? Because if they're getting into smart home displays, it's like, I mean, depending on how old you are, you probably grew up with TVs that are about the size of a modern Echo Show, like a 16 or 17-inch TV in a kitchen or something would have been like totally normal back in the day. But now here we are with a 21-inch smart display that is also a TV. It can play stuff. I know Smart Home Solver had a cool automation in his recent video that came out today about playing YouTube TV on his Google Home in the kitchen. And I thought that also makes sense. He had put on Sports Center, I think, as he was making breakfast. And yeah, of course, you got your smart home controls there. So again, I'm not super into Amazon's ecosystem. I've played with their things a handful of times. I find if you want to do things like, lots of timers and other general tasks with a Sonos speaker, sometimes turning on Amazon's voice assistant can be helpful there. But I'm probably not going to get one of these Echo Show 21s or anything. But I do think it's interesting that Amazon sees there's enough of a market there. They're trying a bigger display. Of course, there are, companies that make really big displays for the home. And this isn't a smart home product at all. This is more just like a family product. And I talked about this in a video a while ago, but it's a very premium smart display made by a small company. And I don't know, maybe they're off. Yeah. Okay. So now they're down to 1 to 2 weeks. For a while, Hearth was I think a long waiting list. And then there's, of course, the subscription that goes along with it, but just like calendars and notes and other stuff for kids on a shared screen in the house, and you can put their artwork up there on the screen. I don't know personally if I would buy this for our home, but it is a thing and it is continuing to sell and the company's in business, and I think it's great. And I'd be open to trying it and just seeing what it's like and seeing if it would be good. But it's another sort of vote in the direction of big screens are great to have in a central place in a home for life. And I think it's also important to think about this too, because you can imagine Apple tying a lot of these things into iCloud. Of course, they already have iCloud family plans already set up, and something like that would instantly be pretty compelling for a lot of people. And I think also could be, as I talked about a little bit in my I think it was my newsletter last week, just how there's other reasons that people will buy potentially Apple's new smart display that don't relate to smart home tech, and that it could be more of a gateway to smart home tech where they get it for the calendar and the music and video playback, and then the smart home stuff comes along with it. Like, oh, I can set my thermostat here. That's cool. And whereas probably a lot of you guys on this call, a lot of folks here, probably the smart home part is the primary reason you'd be interested in a product like that. So from Apple. But yeah, I've always thought this product was an interesting concept. That's like, this is a thing that exists, and it's a business that's seems from a distance to be successful. So, and then here's the new Echo again. So I don't know what you guys think of big smart displays. It doesn't sound like Apple's smart display, at least the initial version, is going to be very big. 6-inch screen, I think, is what Mark Gurman was saying, but we'll see. One other thing that I wanted to mention here is if you have an Apple Vision Pro, I have been really loving. I took the plunge, and actually, right now, I am live streaming to you from macOS Developer Beta 4 of whatever it is, Sequoia .2 release, and it has been pretty stable for me. My use of it on my personal machines, and I've been then playing with the Apple Vision Pro widescreen display. I almost opened this live stream with like that on, and just as a gimmick, but I'm actually finding it so useful for doing work that sometimes I'll even like I had for a while I'd just keep my Apple Vision Pro like at home to use here, or like I keep it for a little bit of time at like my co-working space where I go to, locked away there. But now I'm actually just taking it back and forth between both, because I always want to have it for the potential of using it for various times where I can have like a big widescreen display. It's really nice, and Apple did a really good job. And when that comes out as an official release, probably in December, we'll see, but very exciting new feature. So if you're into Apple Vision Pro, it is like other people have said this, but I'm just like adding to the commentary. That's like, it is a really good feature, and really handy to have like this ultra wide curved 49-inch. It's basically like having one of those big 49-inch ultra wide monitors, but in virtual space, and you can make it very big. And it's not retina per se, but it's very sharp. Like it looks very sharp in Apple Vision Pro. Like it doesn't feel out of place. It almost feels like a display Apple could make, but I mean not quite the same pixel density, of course, or pixels per degree if we're talking VR terms. Oh yeah, that's a really good point, Brian, about I think we're talking about the heart display we were talking about earlier. Is it's cool how they went 9:16. And I think more and more videos going vertical. Of course, now you can live stream vertically to YouTube and plenty of other platforms for a long time already. With people using a smartphone vertically, I think there's a lot that makes, like, people are just used to screens being tall like that. And then also it just kind of fits a classic piece of paper. Usually that's in portrait. So I think it's an interesting point. Now, it seems like Apple's display will be square, their initial one, based on the rumors. We'll see. But a lot of the smart displays, like you look at the Echo Show, and I don't think most of the smart displays that I've seen, they can't go in portrait. So and I think it's a real missed opportunity now that you bring it up, Brian. Like, it'd be nice to see a smart display that can go into portrait. But and that's a great cool thing about Hearth. Hey Gordon, nice to see you here. Nice to see you here. Thanks for joining. Have you ever tried editing any photos in the Vision Pro? A little bit when it first came out. It is cool for that, and that you can see the photo really big, but it's more about viewing the photos than editing. Unless you're mirroring to Mac, like that part completely works fine. Trying to use, like, let's say the Photos app or something else to like adjust the slider, like that kind of precision control is just slower to do with gestures on Apple Vision Pro than a mouse and keyboard. And so I wouldn't do that. But really anything you do on a Mac, in Vision Pro works pretty well. The one caveat to that I'd say is anything where you need to look at the keyboard to remember where things are. So if you have muscle memory of where things are on the keyboard, that's fine, to do. But when you have to continually look at the keyboard of like, all right, I need to type in something, like for me, I can remember where most of the keys for the letters are, but sometimes they're like, especially in Apple Vision Pro, to orient myself of like, all right, where's the number pad again on my keyboard? Like, let me go down and like punch in a couple of different numbers. That can be a little bit slower. But yeah, things like photo editing. I haven't done photo editing a ton, and I actually haven't really done video editing a ton. The thing I find it more useful for is like research and writing, or things where you're like putting a bunch of stuff up around you and like working with a bunch of different things at once. That's where it's really handy. Um, I don't know if I don't know if I would say it's a device to get just for editing photos. Like that's not, it's a little bit of a, spatial photo creation on Vision Pro is really cool. And that's probably back to the photo thing. The thing I find the most striking is it can use machine learning AI now to in Vision OS 2. And this is not in the betas. This is in the public version right now of Apple Vision OS. But you can turn a 2-dimensional photo into a 3-dimensional photo. And I can't remember. I think I probably mentioned this on live streams back when it was when it was recent. But looking at a big picture of, let's say, a relative who maybe isn't around anymore, has passed away, and seeing that picture life size or larger than life size, and seeing that 2-dimensional picture that was taken years before any of this technology was really a thing, and seeing that turn into 3D is really a unique experience. I think it was even like, maybe it was Tim Cook in an interview, or some other people talked about that. And it is something that like, it's really, it's a weird feeling, but it's in, at least for me, in a good way. But it is really cool, whether it's for, seeing someone you like that in that kind of scenario, or just in general, reliving photos from a time that obviously, time passed, kids were younger or whatever. It all can be really surreal to see that. And of course, if it is a iPhone photo captured with a depth map, it'll use that depth map to sort of inform the spatial nature of it too. So you don't need to take spatial photos or videos to get that. And I think it's a pretty cool concept. Hey, John, thanks for joining. Setting up my Bamboo Lab A1 3D printer. Oh, very cool. Getting into 3D printing. Yeah, that's like something I've always had on my list of like, oh, that would be fun to do, but I just never get around to it. And our house doesn't really have the space for it right now. So, yeah, just not really something I have the room to do, but I do think 3D printing is really cool. So that's great. You got one, John. See the world with Chris. Oh, cool. Good evening. Nice to see you here. See you here. What are you talking about, Charles, in the chat? I missed the context here. Yes. Ryan, good comment on the rumor mill for 2025. Apple Home is hugely exciting. Home OS, yes. And then the Apple LLM, yeah. That's a whole other can of worms too to get into. But I think I think it's pretty clear at this point, regardless of what actually comes out from the rumors, it's clear Apple's like really seeing the smart home as another key area of their product lineup. And I think that's going to be really nice for Apple themselves and also the industry. Maybe you watching this are really into Apple smart home tech like myself, and that'll be great because you'll benefit from a lot of this stuff, and probably Apple users will catch up to a lot of the features that Amazon and Google have had for a little while, and hopefully surpass them. But I also think it'll just be good for the industry because it tends to be, Apple is very good at generating interest in a topic. And I think if they push more into smart home tech, it'll make more people interested or get more, awaken more people to the idea, oh, I could make this smart in my home. And hopefully, as I was talking about my newsletter last week, that the smart home will be ready for that, and that Matter will be stable enough, and people will be able to buy a smart plug at the store or a light bulb at the store, and it'll just work, and they won't have too many challenges there. And I think if all that lines up more or less, broadly speaking, I think we're in for a really exciting year. So yeah. And then another thing that came out this week too, by the way, alongside these, so I talked about the Akara smart water valve control, because that was released in the US, but Akara also released a carbon monoxide smoke detector in the EU. So that's another cool release if you live in the EU, or I'm jealous. There's been, I don't know what regulation in the US or something. It'd probably be something for me to look into more, but like, why are there so many? It feels to me like there are more smart smoke detector, carbon monoxide detectors in Europe than there are here, because there's Netatmo has one in Europe, and so does now Akara. We don't have either of those. I mean, we do have the Nest Detects, the Nest Protects. That's what I have, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because I don't think Google's really committed to that product at this point. But I have those just from a previous owner of this home, that they were just already here, and I bought a couple others. But then there's One Link, I think, is another company that makes them. But I haven't really tried too many smart smoke detectors myself. But it's also like one of those things too that has been kind of, Apple added this, and before that, I think Amazon and Google also added this. I know Amazon has, I can't remember if Google has, but this idea that Apple added last year of the HomePods being able to detect a traditional non-smart smoke detector. If it's making noise and an alarm going off, then your HomePods will recognize that. So that is kind of a way that you lose some of the features, right? Like, my Nest can tell me that the battery's running low in the app, and I can see which one, and it's not making an annoying beeping noise. I can get an idea of, oh, the battery's running low on this one. I need to replace the batteries. But, and there's other things like being able to silence the alarm from the phone and stuff like that. But in general, I think I've seen some smart smoke detectors that have like smart speakers inside of them, and I guess it's kind of creative idea of like, you can put speakers in the ceiling that are also your smoke detectors, but it's a tricky industry. And I remember reading Tony Fidel's memoir about his time at Apple and Nest, and he was talking about they had this issue with the Nests where they used to have a feature with the Nest Protects where you could wave at them to get it to stop. And it seems kind of natural, right? Like, hey, smoke detector, I got this under control. The fire's not a problem. I just burnt something in the kitchen, whatever it is. And then it would stop. But then there were apparently times where the fire itself or some other like reflections of light or things would falsely trigger the smoke detector to stop running when it should continue to run. And so that was like a whole thing they had to deal with. And fire is a pretty serious thing to get wrong, right? Like if you detect it wrong. I do find it interesting, related to this, by the way, that my HomePod, so I'm going to hopefully fix all of the issues thoroughly this weekend, but I've been having issues with my sub pump that's right here in my office. And during the day, sometimes an alarm will go off where it will just beep. And it's loud enough that you can hear it from a lot of places in the house, but it's not quite as distinctive as a smoke alarm. And I am surprised that my HomePods have not detected it and alerted me to say there's an alarm or something. I wouldn't expect, it's not a kind of alarm that Apple says it will support, right? They specifically say smoke alarms, and this is not a smoke alarm, but it does seem like it's close enough. Like, I don't know why that it's impressive that from Apple's side, they're differentiating that sort of beeping from the sump pump as not a smoke alarm, so don't alert. I think that's impressive, and not just that it isn't picking it up, but that was another sort of smart home story. Um, so, oh, so this is interesting, like behind the scenes of YouTube. Let me get into this, John. So I would say, generally speaking, it's been myself and probably a bunch of other creators trying to get the smart home industry to do this for us. So the challenge is a lot of times with product reviews on YouTube, especially with something like a niche review in the smart home space, there is you're trying to make a video that then people want to watch, but after the news breaks about that thing, people have watch a handful of videos and they kind of make up their mind whether they're interested in the product or not. And then from there, all it is after that is the long tail of people who, I'm sure there are people right now on my channel who see some product that's on sale for Cyber Month, and they're thinking, oh, maybe I want that. And then they go search and they find my video or Shane's video or someone else's video, and they're watching those reviews to figure out, oh, is this really what I want or not? And so you get that long tail with any product of like people over the months, like, I don't know, up to 18 months, 24 months after the product's released, and they'll go watch videos. But, that in and of itself usually isn't a significant size of viewers for certain products. And so what can help is if the company gives us, under what's called embargo, the product ahead of time. So I had the leak sensor for a little while, as I mentioned in the video, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it anywhere. And then the video posts, and I was allowed, it varies depending on the nature of the video and stuff, but I always make it clear, like in this case, I, just said that they sent me the product, because then I was allowed to say whatever I wanted to say about that product once it was announced, right? Like, so once the embargo lifted at a particular date and time, I can publish my video and it can say whatever I wanted to say. So they, Akara did not get to see that video before I posted it. And they're always looking for feedback from creators of what we're saying, good and bad, about a product, right? So they'll of course pay attention to it, but they don't see it before you do, for a non-sponsored video, or a video they're not sponsoring like that. But with that, that sort of means that then a lot of us creators who happened to get the embargo product before it released, we get sort of an initial shot at that audience that just found out about the product and is trying to learn more. So that then boosts the views of those videos, and then means they perform better over time because they get that initial boost of the people interested in, oh, I just heard about that Akara did a smart valve control. And obviously, like in this case, Akara had announced the valve control was coming. So there was a little bit of initial information out there. They'd shown it off at IFA. So it wasn't like a completely new product out of the blue, as sometimes has happened. But this kind of thing is very common in like the camera review space, the phone review space, the computer review space. A lot of tech products, they come out with an embargo like this, and then a bunch of creators post their videos about the same time, if the creators can get the video done in time for the deadline, because then your video is going to be one of those initial ones that gets a bump of viewers interested in the new product. And the companies like it because it creates a bunch of hype on social media of all these people talking about their product that day when it launches. So I think in general, it's a win-win for everybody involved with embargo products. But the smart home industry itself has been a little bit, I think, since I've started covering stuff in, I don't know, whatever it was, years ago. 2018 was when I started, but I think this really started around like 2020 or something. The smart home industry was a little slow to this concept of like, oh, let's delay our launch a week or two and give a bunch of creators the product ahead of time, and then let them talk about it right when we officially announce it. And Akara has generally been very good about that compared to some other companies. And but it's because it's always really difficult when it's like a new product comes out and I don't have it in advance, and then it's like a bunch of people have already made up their minds about it. Do I make a video? that gets a lot less views, or do I make, do I just skip the product entirely, or just make a short about it? And it depends on the nature of the product, and it's a tough thing to judge, right? Like of any given time. But that was kind of the concept here, is that it was a product I was really excited about and glad that I could check out early on. And obviously, posting right at the announcement date isn't essential. Like Sonos didn't send me the Arc Ultra. I bought that when it came out, but I got it as soon as I possibly could at release date and made the video as fast as I could after that. Same as the Nest Learning Thermostat and the Eufy S3 Pro. Like all those, thanks to your support of the channel, I was able to get. But then, I wanted to do it as fast as possible. Doing a Eufy S3 Pro video now has a lot less chance of succeeding to that number of views because there are already a ton of videos out there covering that product. Unless you're a big channel that has a built-in audience that's already just going to watch it because you're letting your audience know about it that didn't know about it already. So that's kind of just a little bit, without getting too off in the weeds, of probably stuff you guys don't really care about because you're just here to watch the videos and learn about smart home tech. But that's kind of behind the scenes of like what happens in a time like that. It's like a bunch of us creators got that in advance, and that's how it works. And usually, sometimes it's sponsored and sometimes it's not. It just depends on the nature of the launch and the nature of what the company wants to do. And I like that Aqara gives us these products, and for me at least, lets me say what I want about them when they launch. Cool. I actually have some other stuff to get through in the chat, but I do want to mention, speaking of products recently, an update on this guy here. So this Switchbot, just the things you might see on sale and stuff like this. This is the Switchbot. What's the model number on this? It's their new miniature vacuum that supports Matter. And I've had it cleaning my basement for a little while now. This is the K10 Plus Pro. Very cool idea. I love that Switchbot was innovating and is innovating and trying to make like a smaller vacuum. Means it's a smaller base station, fits in smaller rooms. But one of the things I found in just using it month after month is it's started to struggle more than it was initially with the obstacle avoidance. And it's really struggled with, I think when I first got it, I had my like a different office chair here in my office at home. And I've since changed office chairs to the one I currently have. And this one I think it's not sponsored. I did not get this for free. This is from Flexisbot. And it tends to get stuck in the legs of this seat all the time. So I just come in here. I'd say it's must be like a third to maybe 30 to 40% of the mornings. I'm just guesstimating. I come in here and the robot is stuck somewhere, usually around this chair. So I think, well, I love the idea that Switchbot's trying here, and maybe it's something around their software, and I've kept up with their firmware updates, but maybe it's also something about just the size of the vacuum. I think that this size of a vacuum, because it's little, can get itself in tight spaces more than the traditional robot vacuum size, which seemed to really kind of coalesce around that usual vacuum size of about twice as big as this is. But I think maybe there's a reason there, and just that like it's able to, just by being bigger, avoid more obstacles that it would otherwise get into. So just a heads up, if you're looking at that as maybe something in your Cyber Month watch list, it's a good product, but it's has some I mentioned in the review some obstacle avoidance issues, but since that review, they've gotten worse. So just wanted to call it out here on the live stream. I just purchased a new house. Congratulations, Sean. And getting an Aqara valve control. Cool. Any idea how many leak sensors can use on it? I have around 18 spots that could put sensor. Well, that's a good point, because I tried to point to the button in the video, but in the B-roll, but I neglected to mention it when I recorded talking part, and I would just kind of went forward with the video without like adding this little detail in. But you can pair up to 20 leak sensors from Aqara directly with the Aqara with a Aqara valve control. So there's a limit of 20 total that can be paired, which I think is very reasonable. And as I mentioned in the video, keep in mind how many leak sensors you actually want to pair with it. You might not, like for example, if your faucet in your bathroom drips a little bit of water and then it gets the leak sensor wet, is it worth then shutting off the water for the whole house just because your faucet's dripping a little bit? Now, it is one of the challenges with leak sensors is they set off when they detect any water. So it's not like something that can be like, oh, this is a real bad leak or just some dripping. There isn't really sort of a flow rate thing like there would be with, at CES last year, Moen was showing off their whole home water control. And one of the things they were talking about at CES was that their Moen system can look at the water pressure around your home and use AI. I don't know if it's that's the buzzword, of course. Use AI to monitor the water pressure and then sort of judge, is this a really bad leak or is this just like, your pipe's dripping? And so there's that to think about too. So I think what you're thinking about with the Aqara system could be a really great option, but just keep in mind that, strategically think about which leak sensors in your home you actually want to have the power to shut off your water supply in your home. Something like a washing machine, I would put on that list maybe of like, if it's leaking, maybe you want to just shut off the water just to make sure. And, people were talking about in the comments of my video of, oh, you could tie the appliance. Cause I was mentioning like, if you shut the water off for appliance, it's probably going to mess with the appliance, right? Like dishwasher, washing machine, stuff like that. And might break it, but might at least just give it some, problems. But from there, you could shut off the appliance with a smart plug or get really fancy like that. But then you need a smart plug that you're sure can handle the appliance. So just some things, some layers to think about, but I think it is a smart idea to put something like this in your home because then it will prevent a lot of bad damage from happening. And it's nice to have it fully integrated in Apple Home. So just some kind of expounding on some details from the video there. And there was something else I was going to say about that I can't remember what it was. But yes, 20 is your limit without getting into too much detail. And this is the speaking of, I talked to these people at back to the beginning of this whole thing at PepCom last year. But the Moen Flow system, Flow shut off, and this does not work with Apple Home. But this is the other thing. So I'm sorry I forgot who it was in my comments. You're a regular viewer of my channel, but your username is escaping me. But was mentioning in my comments of that video that the challenge with a lot of lever valves is that if they're just sitting on or open all the time, they can sort of harden to that state and take a lot of force to turn off. And then something like this Moen Flow, as you can see with the video here, is like actually the valve. And so it has a little more control over the actual water flow. And so potentially, depending on your, if you use an Aqara sensor, you might want to create some kind of automation that periodically, like once a month, or once every other week or something, just turns a thing off and then back on right away. Just because then it'll keep the lever valve handle, working in working order. And the advantage of the Aqara system there is that then you don't need a plumber to install it. You can just put it over your pipe and you're not messing with your pipes. This kind of a system by Moen, like you're breaking the pipe open and putting this on there. So just some things to consider as you're looking at different water shutoff systems. And there's actually one of the things I cut from my video that was just like my personal side of this, of like I had a bunch of work done on my plumbing in February, and they added those uh, levers that you see in there now. Long story short, that was part of that. Removed a water softener that was there, and and then our water shutoff that actually does the entire house, which is a place that's not easy to film and wouldn't have been as good of a place to show the valve control working, but it does, it does work there too. But they have like, there's ways that then you can alleviate the water pressure from inside the home once you turn it off. Once you turn off the water, if you have some real problem where then you have a bunch of water in your pipes and you need to take it out of your pipes, there's like a release that you can take it out there. And it's like, that would be cool to have that smart too. But that's a little you couldn't really do that, I don't think, with like multiple Aqara valve controls. Maybe you could, but I probably need to put another lever valve in there somewhere. Anyways, I digress, but that's a mow and flow. But I would say stick with Aqara unless you're really set on getting a fancy system like this. There are advantages to those, but it's a lot more money and a lot more effort. So oh yes, because Brian, I know you used to review cameras. Yes, I don't miss reviewing cameras and lenses with short deadlines. That is, I mean, I am very tired right now because I've been I don't have like upcoming embargoes per se, but I just have like, this is the time of year when a lot of your creator friends are working overtime to get videos out. And so yeah, this is very busy time working. And that was this Aqara video was one of those sort of taking it from I'm just playing with this product to here's the video on it. Like that whole process was smushed. I remember too, I was in like a YouTube sort of like course on like, I guess, I don't know if you call it a course, but like a group thing where I was like learning about becoming a better YouTuber. And Mr. Who's the Boss was like in this like seminar series, like it was from Ali Abdal's program on Part-Time YouTuber Academy back in the day. This was years ago. But Mr. Who's the Boss was talking about the same problem, and he's a huge tech reviewer of just that you get a phone in his case, and like you have 48 hours to figure out like everything about the phone and make a video on it. And a lot of times YouTubers will be clear with that in the video. It's not like a full review. It's just impressions of the product. And sometimes with a smart home tech product, I think you can pretty much cover everything in a short amount of time. And I had a bunch of time to play with this Aqara valve control, but it's just a matter of, making that video. You sometimes don't have a lot of time. Oh, William, how's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Yep. Okay, cool, John. Yeah. I mean, I figure if you watch YouTube, you probably get the hang of like that these kind of things happen. But just wanted to clarify. Okay. Some talk about different leak sensors. Yeah, and good point, Brian, with the robot vacuums. I'm hoping there'll be some movement on that in the coming years, because if you look at some of the current models, they're the high end ones. But traditionally, what robot vacuum companies will do is they'll continue to sell those older models and then move them down in price. And so I bet wait a little bit of time and you'll find a vacuum that's more in that realm. And I see the value in a lot of the newer, expensive robot vacuums, but that's only because I've had the privilege of, thanks to YouTube, doing this channel, having the company send me those vacuums for free. I don't know if I would be able to afford those vacuums myself otherwise. It's certainly, I think, money well spent if you have the money, right? But like, it's a lot of money to spend, $1,600 or $1,800 on a robot vacuum. Um, yeah, I can totally understand. Yes. Quick answer on that. Yes, you can, William. So if you have multiple valves, you can pair a particular leak sensor. But I haven't tried this because I've only had the one valve control. But from my understanding, based on what I've seen in the app and stuff, that one leak sensor, I don't think the leak sensor can be paired to multiple Akara shutoff valves. So like if you had one area where you wanted multiple valves to be triggered, you might need to end up getting multiple leak sensors to do that. But you might, I don't know if like ask Akara on social media and see what Akara officially says, because I haven't tested that myself. But yes, you can pair multiple. From what I've seen in the app, you should be able to do something there. You might have to get multiple leak sensors for that. You might not. Hey, water bottle 365. Nice to see you here. Severe HomeKit lag lately. Oh, bummer. 1 minute lag adjusting Lutron lights. Solid Wi-Fi network on Unify. Another recurring like bingo card drinking game topic of this live stream, or Ubiquity Unify networking stuff. But yeah, I haven't seen any issues like this. Maybe other folks in the chat have. I mean, I have, well, okay, so some issues that are parallel that I've seen that I don't know if they're related to this, but just as long as we're talking about HomeKit issues, I did have the Eve's. So I have one of Eve's switches in my kids' room. And for the first time since I installed it in 2022, it went offline. So I needed to flip the circuit breaker tonight and get it to reboot. And now it's back online and seems to be working fine. But that was like the first time I'd seen that Eve switch go offline since I installed it. Which is pretty good, 2 years, 2.5 years, and no problems. But yeah, my Lutron switches have still been working well. I do wonder though, with Lutron, as I mentioned in my newsletter last week, Apple's been moving to support Matter, it seems like, more than Apple Home. And there's some sources like Apple Insider confirming sort of from sources that is the case. And with that, I wonder how much companies that just support Apple Home, like right now, Sleek Point is one that, with the Thor Bolt and the Airversa air purifier, great products, but and work well, pretty well right now. But like, if just supporting the HomeKit accessory protocol, if that's going to be problematic for some of these companies over time. For example, another thing with Lutron, as we're talking about now. Sorry, I'm getting tired. Lutron has had, consistently been with the HomeKit protocol because they have not officially supported Matter yet. So I do wonder with that, like, is that going to lead to reliability issues for Lutron and Apple Home? Lutron has, for me, been very reliable and traditionally been very good at getting that stuff right. But that might be a challenge for them over time if they're not able to support Matter. There was some new stuff in Matter 1.4 around exposing light switches as things that are not just lights in Matter. And I almost wondered, is someone like, Lutron with their fan controls and their switches that they market as a fan or light control, is that like a hold up for Lutron? Are we not going to see Lutron support for Matter until Matter 1.4 is really here? I have no idea. I no clear word on that, but and I know Lutron is involved with the CSA and Matter, so hopefully we'll see their Matter support soon enough. But that I think is maybe the I don't know. It's something related to that. Oh yes, Sean just went through a finished basement a decade ago. I got a finished basement. Ouch. Yeah, I love the flooring we have in here in this basement, and man, if we got water damage in there here, I'd be so sad. Not to mention this whole YouTube empire you guys are fans of would really struggle if my studio went away, at least for some time. I mean, that could make for some really exciting content though, of like sort of reality TV. Eric redoes his basement, but not cheap. Um, there's some comments here that just catching up on. Yes, I mentioned I think in my reply to you, William, that there are a couple times you talked about it here on the live stream that I had to like keep my lips sealed and just play along with what was public information about the Akara uh, valve control because I've had I've been had it for a while, but it's not a long time, but like number of weeks, and it's one of those things you don't really use a lot, right? Like I'm not. It's not like a light switch or something that you're using all the time, but I definitely turn it on and off to play with it. Um, yeah, it's a good point, Brian, and I think you could look at they were acquired last year by a bigger conglomerate in the EU. I'm trying to remember the name of the company that bought Eve, but um, I from what I've seen since that acquisition, I think it's nothing but positive. I think it gave Eve some deeper pockets of backing. So they're not a small company. Um, Maybe they can take bigger bets with research and development or stuff. But um, yeah, I mean, they've been great overall for a long time in Apple Home, and it's good to see them now moving into Matter and hopefully having a bigger market there. The other thing with Eve too is like I think that their real turning point was when Thread came out. Eve was very eager with Thread because Eve was very much on the Bluetooth bandwagon before that, and Eve made the best of Bluetooth. They made it work as good as it could for what they wanted to do of sort of this no cloud, no subscription, local only smart home that works with Apple Home. And it was either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth there. And I think they saw the energy efficiency of Bluetooth over Wi-Fi and went with that. But for a lot of their products, but I think Thread was just so much of a better protocol for smart home stuff, and so I think once Eve moved their stuff to Thread, it was a real step change in their reliability, um, and they've also always had a really good app as well. If you haven't checked out the Eve app, you should go check that out. I'm guessing you have, Brian, but like anybody else watching. The Eve app has a lot of it's a very different UI layout and style than Apple's Home app, but it adds a lot of configuration options that you would otherwise have to get from apps that you usually pay money for in some way. Okay, so what are you guys talking about doing? I passed a lot of okay, yeah. So Gordon was talking about it keeps Home Assistant or HomeKit cleaner when you have a lot of items from Home Assistant into HomeKit, but Lutron is natively connected to HomeKit. Maybe I'll try doing Home Assistant. Yeah, interesting idea. Especially maybe some of your automations there would then run inside Home Assistant, so it'd be one less step. I could see that. I could see that working out nicely in your specific situation. Cool. So it has been, man, I've been going over an hour now. A long time. I think we're gonna wrap this stream up. And with that, I actually have the new tradition I'm starting here, which if you watch the end of the stream, which you are today, I want to make a regular habit of highlighting a particular YouTuber or YouTube video that usually isn't directly tied to smart home tech, but is something I think you might enjoy. If you like my channel and want to like learn about things that I'm interested in that you might also be interested in. So, as you might know, I'm a yeah, Eric's bedtime. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, buddy. But as you might know, I'm into Formula One. Speaking of weekend of staying up late, although I probably will just watch the recordings of a lot of these videos. But Formula One is a really cool sport. There's Drive to Survive, of course, is a great series on Netflix covering the sport, and that's how I got into it back in 2020. But Kim Illman over on YouTube is an Australian Formula One photographer, and he follows the sport and is official, goes around, and he has a great channel talking about all kinds of details of F1 and especially not only just not as much like commentary on like why did this driver do so well this weekend, but more like the behind the scenes of like actually pulling off Formula One and what was a particular driver doing or wearing or saying, and it's just like a perspective on Formula One that you don't get from the typical, I mean, which I also value, like the typical newscaster, like analysis of the sport, right? That's good to have too. But anyways, totally recommend checking out Kim Illman's channel on YouTube, and especially if you're interested at all in like this weekend is the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and so if you're just that's kind of a an interesting race in terms of just the logistics of how they pull that thing off, like basically stopping traffic in a lot of the strip in Vegas and turning it into a racetrack is pretty crazy. So I'll just leave a link to his channel here in the chat. And it's another, you can also look it up as well. But yeah, go check out Kim's content. I mean, he's got lots of views. He doesn't mean my extra views are just going to be a tiny blip in his stats. But anyways, yeah, go check him out. Good channel if you're into Formula One. And with that, oh, cool. Who's starting a smart home channel? What? Oh yes, those of us without kids. Yeah, it's early. Yes, once you have kids, it wake you up at 5:30 every morning, or earlier. Or I'm also a morning person in general. Yes, love F1 too. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hope to see you in the next video. And yeah, go check out Kim's channel. Bye.